Okay, let's get started. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call to the community. This is the time for, excuse me. This is time for citizens who would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to asking staff to review the matter, asking that the matter be put on a future agenda, or responding to criticism. Mr. Sonny Colbreth filled out a form and would like to comment potentially on 2 agenda items after the presentations have been made. First agenda item, response to call to the community. We didn't have anybody last month, so we have nothing there. Presentations. Camelback Park perimeter wall and parking lot presenter Keith Dranaski. Did I say it right, Keith?
There you go. That was a good first try.
All right. City Engineer and Director of Community Development.
Thank you all. I'm going to pass out some exhibits. For reference, I'll try to keep this brief. Thank you all for your time. I'll give you an update on the Camelback Park parking lot and perimeter wall as it is adjacent to the park. Back in 2021, 2022, the previous city engineer and community liaison, Sonny, coordinated with city staff and homeowners on various layouts. I can tell you in our files there's probably 12 different layouts in our files. So there's a lot of effort that went into the early portion of this project and ended up being in a configuration very similar to what you see. What you see on this exhibit is a engineered scaled, so after a survey, we had a chance to go out there and actually put a scale to it. So this is 1-to-1 overlaid on a scaled aerial. Very similar to what the final layout was back then. The initial project was brought to council for approval, and the layout itself wasn't approved, but the marching orders to proceed into final design was granted. So that's about the time I started working here, so I took over the project. Got several on-call consultants. We have an on-call consultant, engineering consultant that's working on the wall, and another on-call consultant that's working on the parking lot. And they're working together. November 13th, we had a public meeting. Several people, several faces in here were in the public meeting. We had really good turnout, really good numbers. The result of that meeting was no view fence, and we don't really like the idea of having a parking lot in the park. So what our current direction is laid out before you in the reddish and yellow color. Is an on-street diagonal parking along Villanueva. One of the main reasons why that couldn't work before was because we have a slight speeding problem on Villanueva, as many people probably are aware. And there was a slight aversion to putting speed bumps from my understanding. However, what I'm hearing from the public and staff members is that is not an aversion any longer. If it makes it safer, and it makes the fact that we can put a parking lot elsewhere than on grounds. So what we're doing is we're working with one of our on-calls to do a speed study. I've already done a speed study of Villanueva that found that there's minor speeding, not enough to capture and tell us all that there's a heavy speeding problem, but enough to be concerned to not put diagonal parking. So we're revamping that study to see where we want to place the traffic cushions, the speed cushions. We placed them on there as a general idea of where we think they're going to go. You don't want to put them across an intersection, and we don't want to go too far along Villanueva where we're outside of the park perimeter and the purview. So the diagonal parking, we're shooting for, I'd like to get 25 spaces. We don't know what's going to happen. This isn't exactly 100% scaled modified layout, but we're shooting for something in the neighborhood of 25 spaces, and as well as golf cart parking. I wanted to overlay the previous layout so you can see kind of the amount of impact we're reducing with an on-street parking layout. The 25 spots, even though it's a goal, it's likely not going to completely mitigate the surge component of a sporting event, but it's going to very heavily help it out. Other improvements that might happen along Villanueva as a result of the traffic study might be things like modified striping. We don't want cars trying to switch lanes in these areas anymore. We might have some other no parking signage in other areas to try to keep people from wanting to do that, especially folks that aren't familiar with Villanueva. If they have a kid on a football or doing a sporting event and they only come into the park for the sporting event, they're not used to what happens around Villanueva, so we don't want any surprises. So that's another reason why we have engaged with traffic consultants. So, sorry we got a little long-winded, but that's the state as of right now. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are any of these golf cart parking? I know in the old design there was like some golf cart parking in here.
Yes, these are just the general layout to get the consultant going. They're going to engineer it up and put actual diagonal, you have to do, back in my, I'm trying to remember all the times I've done diagonal parking on a curve. It's not as easy as it looks, but they'll do their geometry and come up with what those numbers end up being. And there's not a set golf cart parking, kind of like the previous layout. We actually were lucked out because we had a little nook that fit a bunch of them, but we're going to fit a few of them in there.
Vice Chair?
You said from the meeting that the opinion was no view fence. But I know that we had talked about view fence up at the corner of Camelback and Dysart, just, so it's not like walled-in jail city there. Is that still something that is being looked at?
I like that. I like the
Me too.
in some areas, maybe not as much as what was presented in the meeting. Another option that we're looking at is, I wish I had a detail, but imagine maybe a 2-foot space with like a single or 2 pieces of wrought iron.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough to where it's a big giant opening, but people driving by they'll see that it's a greenery on the other side. The overwhelming majority was a kind of a negative on the view fence anywhere, but we don't want to shut it out completely. The other thing about that chamfer location is we don't really know exactly what we're doing. I know I mentioned that we're going to try to do a monument entry, kind of an entry monument.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a project in itself, and that might come along with modifications to the wall. So I don't want to go in, just do a view fence, and then, we don't know exactly what we're going to do and leave it open, because that's also not the most luxurious corner.
Yeah.
It will get prettier once we get this wall out there and we expand the park into that nook, but
I understand why solid walls are a necessity behind a residential area, but aesthetically, when it's a park and it's this big, in my head, it just needs something else because of interest, if not any other reason, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
It's not a closed subject, so I appreciate the comments.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So, along the same lines, one of the things that we talked about was keeping view fencing over here where there's no parking and the park ends. It's a pony wall right now, and that looks out on the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a gorgeous view in both directions. I think, because across the street, north of there is not a Taco Bell yet.
Yeah.
So we could get 2 Taco Bells on the corner.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the consensus of this committee was that some view fencing, not all, but some view fencing was preferential to just a block wall. And I think we're on the same page with you on
Yeah,
that.
and I think the area just outside of the purview, and I apologize for not having the larger map that I had at the public meeting, but that one is still an open subject, and it has no feather in cap has happened on that location. There has anybody that was at the public meeting knows that there was several people that just don't want any advertisement of what the internals of the city look like to the outside. I don't see that as being a consensus, because there was other comments, and what I'm hearing from you folks, that some view fence is good. And I don't want it to be a prison either. I grew up out here, I've been here since '87, so that park's always been a green spot. I love driving by it and seeing it.
Yeah. And it's a great advertisement for our city when you get glimpses of that flag football game going on out there, or whatever it is.
Well, and when you're in it too, it's like
You don't want walls.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The second question I had was, the speed cushions.
like
As
that.
a cyclist, when I'm less, large, when they put the ones on Bird Lane, they went all the way across, and there was no way for a cyclist to go without hitting a bump. Are these gonna have gaps in them where you can get through without hitting a bump?
Yeah, and, I debated on whether I was gonna include that second page, because I had a detail for it. But so we have to provide an 8.5 foot, lane width in the middle for the, fire trucks and ambulance.
Right.
So the outside on the detail that we're gonna use, it has I don't know if it's 1.5 foot or 2 feet, so off of the edge of the gutter, there'll be nothing, and then it
something
goes
again in the
up.
middle?
Yeah, so there'll be 2 in the middle, and then the outsides near the gutter will have.
Perfect.
From the lip of gutter to the start, you'll have like between 2 and 3 feet.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. This extra land we're getting here on this corner, is there a plan for that?
And I kind of touched on it in the public meeting, we don't really have a plan. Now, what the downside to the land we're gaining, which is approximately an acre, is the grade differential. The really thing that's beating us up is the irrigation pipe underground is causing a kind of a shelf of sorts. So we can't just expand like the football field or any of the fields. We'd probably have to look at what we want to do specifically that area, actually, because the irrigation line is in the north end of it. We might be able to match grades and get it, but we have that row of trees that, what can you really do? If you chop the trees out, now you gain this green space, but then you chop down these really mature trees. So that is something that I think is an open subject. We're not going to address it with the wall project or the parking lot project specifically, at least not yet. I don't want to close the book on it being something we can at least have when we have the contractor out, say we need to, do some grading or move some dirt or bring some dirt in or do something. That's probably an option, but right now I don't have anything that's not even a list of options of what we want to do there yet.
So you said this is an acre?
The whole thing is an acre.
Oh,
Yeah, it
all
goes all the
of
way
this?
to that
Okay.
corner that's just outside. So that area is, if you mentioned the pony wall, on the other side of the pony wall is like a bunch of rock and gravel, but once we move that pony, because that's what the old wall is,
Yes.
that light blue line. So we're gonna gain something in the neighborhood of, depending on where you are, 12 to 16 feet, I think, along that strip. But it'll be elevated like a shelf. So some things that come to mind are like a walking track or anything else, like if you want to put games, permanent games, like concrete, ping pong, shuffle, things like that. So if that's something that you folks want to look into, then by all means, let's do something about it.
I definitely, let's use it. I live right here on Ora Vista, and I walk my dog in this park almost every day. And a lot of people think that this park is a dog park, and they let their dogs off leash. And I've had some run-ins with other dogs, but that's why I was wondering what that would be used for, if we could use that maybe for dog area, but there's not enough space. But a walking path away from where the center is, I think would be fantastic.
And we'll be putting, as you see, new sidewalk in there, and, it could be an entire loop. Some, maybe it's a DG path, and then it comes onto the sidewalk when you get along being the way of it, or something else.
Exciting.
That's all great topics for our commission to discuss.
Yes, sir.
But first of all, thank you for the many, many iterations of this. I think this is a great compromise between not giving up what the park's supposed to be and accommodating the need that we have for parking, and the speed cushions would help there. I'd second, said about the view fence over on the other side, like to keep that open. There's a fear of this feeling a bit cloistered and just tight if we don't have view, but so I'm not married one way or the other to, like, we must absolutely have view fence or we can't. But if there's angles that are, that address some of the homeowners' concerns that live right here of like, I don't want to look at signage that's lit up at night, that would lend themselves more to that, that'd be nice. But overall, I think the parking situation's a much better fit for the park.
And one other thing we don't have, in the plan at least yet, and this is kind of the same thing from my understanding on all the other perimeter wall projects, is there's never been a real landscape theme, but we've also not, ever since it's been on the Turtle Park, which is its own landscaping. But do we do trees, do we do shrubs? We don't have a plan or a theme for what to do along the wall, whether that's on the outside or the inside of the wall. So that's another thing to maybe think about is, we are gonna have to do a few tree removals here and there. We're gonna try to stay away from the mature ones and the ones that are healthy. We might take this opportunity to take some of the less healthy trees out that are just struggling or are out of place. But we're gonna try to avoid as many taking of mature trees as possible. But we also wanna think about what to put back in some of the spots. So that's another thing that kind of goes along with what we're gonna do with the new space we're about to get, you know, that can all go into a lot of ideas.
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I agree that the new parking design looks a lot better than what we had before. One question though, I think at the public meeting there was talk of doing another survey of the residents right around there. I think there was one done like a long time ago, and there was talk of doing another one, so I was wondering if that's still gonna happen, or do you think you got enough input?
I think we want to do another round of, whether it's a public meeting or we send out the survey forms. Once we get this tied down, since we're not exactly doing a 180, we're doing a, you know, 5-degree turn.
Yeah.
Let's get that into a position where we can share that with the public and then ask questions. One of my goals is to go back out to the 3 homes that are directly in the presented. Because what they had before was very similar to what was presented at the public meeting, so they were already on board with that idea, because blocking the wall, putting it far back. This is a very different approach, but it does meet some of their needs. You know, they don't want headlights in their front yard, and, you know, they don't want the continuous headlights of cars leaving if it's a night event or for some reason, or people hanging out. The security, I think this helps with security, because we do have Avondale going up and down, and it's easier for them PD to see something parked on the street and give them a nice little window tap than it is if somebody's behind a pony wall in a 2-door car that might hide. Plus, we don't have to do any, you know, parking lot lighting, which, you know, because it's along the street, so you're getting some pour over from others, and we're going to look at the lighting to see if that's something that needs to happen here, but definitely wouldn't be pointing it at somebody's house. But I do want to talk to them, and then there's some of the other comments and feedback we've gotten outside of the public meeting is, and I mentioned one of these at the public meeting, the cell tower, some cell tower action further outside of the view to the left there where the old wall ends. They're looking at that little strip of land to kind of put like a hot dog shaped, you know, fenced area and put a cell tower. That's something that we all got to kind of talk about on the city staff side and management side, planning side, you know, it's going to go through it. We're trying to get that tucked away off to the side in a piece of land that we, the city, wouldn't really have any other use for. You know, couldn't put turf there. It's not massively appropriate for an attached sidewalk or a connection to the outside. So it's kind of like no man's land. But we don't want it interfering with that. If we do put that view fence to the fairway, we want it out of the way of that. The other thing is some of the other residents on the south side of the park have asked, is there a possibility of extending the same 8-foot wall to there? So that's something that might happen. So it'd be kind of a decided coverage of that new 8-foot wall.
Mr. Colbreth, would you like to make your comment for this agenda item?
Thanks. Thanks. Appreciate it, Keith and, Mr. Chairman. I agree, I like your new, alternate to the, first approved, or first one that we talked about in this group. It was the first one that I showed to the 3 homeowners that live directly across from there. And so I appreciate that you're gonna visit with them again, get their buy-in. And then, I used to do a block watch down Oro Vista, and, constantly I heard from the Oro Vista people saying that they wanted a full wall because they don't like the lights directly across from them as they sit out in their front yards or as they drive down the street. And so you have, if you're gonna do a full wall, kind of, and if you're gonna do a view fence at all, kind of pick and choose what areas that view fence might be, because there's some areas down towards the west end of that park that's not right across from, the businesses over there. And that could be an ideal place. And then as far as the east end, where you're picking up the extra land, if you don't remove too many of those trees, I think that would be a great place for a picnic area. Because it already has the shade, you wouldn't have to build a ramada necessarily, but just add some picnic tables and some trash cans, and that kind of thing in that area. The walking track, actually, that's something that was discussed probably 15 or more years ago for that park, because people were coming to then Recreation Arts and Parks and asking for an exercise, one of the parks being fitted with some exercise equipment, outdoor exercise equipment, and at least a walking trail, and that was one of the parks that seemed to lend itself best for that, as opposed to some of our others. I'm not recommending, that'd be your decision if you want to try to put some few outdoor exercise type things along that pathway. But if you are considering that, I think that would pretty much turn that park into a full-use park. I know right now, the real parking problem is when youth sports have activities there, starting their practices and having, in other times, they don't have they never had a complaint. So that's something to keep in mind too, just how many seasons are gonna be there, but then you gotta look at the future. Pat may come up with Pat and Tricia and you guys might come up with, all new things that are gonna have somebody out there every day. So I don't know, so you gotta think for the future, but I appreciate it, Keith, and I appreciate you guys taking a look at it again, so thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Sunny a question?
Sure.
Sunny, when you said about the lights coming on to Oro Vista when you were part of the Block Watch, where are the lights coming from? Am I not-
Across the street.
All the businesses
Commercial.
across the street,
Really?
the taco place, the dry cleaners, any of those places straight across the street.
This
If
way,
you
not that way.
look right down that road, you can see all those lights.
Standing at Oro Vista?
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially now with
Susan lives down there.
the LEDs and all
Might be able
that.
to tell you.
Yeah, I was definitely, opposed to any kind of view wall on this side. Because you can, as soon as they built that ER, that Dignity
On
ER.
the east side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as they built that Dignity ER, Dignity Health, and I think the city made them turn those down because they were so bright. Now there's a Denny's, the car wash, Taco
On the
Bell.
west side also is what I was talking.
Then you go over here, and there's Church's Chicken.
So that Church's Chicken is, and where the dry cleaners is, that shopping center starts down here somewhere.
This house here, his whole backyard, all these lights light up his whole backyard.
What are these lights here?
That is where that turn in right here.
Frederica's, right?
Oh, is
Yeah.
that, okay, so that's relatively close to where we were.
Frederica's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's right over there.
So when people are leaving, that exit, the lights come straight across. I have seen that too.
Is there any way to test an 8-foot wall in terms of what it would,
Well, the
just put up
wall,
a barrier, I guess, right, and just see?
For what, for lighting and noise?
For light pollution coming from the Frederico's exit?
Well, I think the 8-foot wall will take care of, I mean, the majority of it is moving cars,
Would have to.
so.
and noise.
2 to 5 feet. But the 8-foot wall, especially being CMU fully grouted, I've done a lot of noise walls. Most of the time we do anytime you do on ADOT, they like to do cast place concrete or CMU. That just sucks noise in,
Mm-hmm.
compared to other options. So that wall will definitely help. Talked to a few residents that have been here since the other wall was done, because we had to do that noise study for MAG, and they said, oh yeah, I loved when that wall went up, because in half.
Mm-hmm.
The Loma residents said the same thing. When the wall went up, the noise went down dramatically. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Keith, can I just ask you, if you don't mind, can you update the commissioners on what kind of estimated time frame you have for getting or finalizing this and getting this back in front of RPG and onto council? Do you have anything, a rough estimate?
I would say, there's a chance we get some additional preliminary drawings, kind of similar to what we had at the public meeting, by the next month. But I'd like to get them to see how aggressive the consultants will go, because our goal was to try to start spending the budget money, doing this work this fiscal year, and then having any carryover into next year. There's nothing worse than carrying over big CIP numbers when we've spent something. So I want to try to fast track it. So I want them to give me a preliminary while they're also doing a little bit of work in the background. So my goal is, and on top of that, I got a couple other CIP projects, and I think we want to do the other portion of that perimeter wall as well before this fiscal year. I got Indian School and Dysart, some changes that are going to go out there. We want to get construction started in the summer, so to backing that out, I've got to have plans pretty much approved so I can bid them in the May area. So April, May is probably when we'll start having final plans, so I would say that gives us enough time to come back next month, give one more round of preparing, put it on council agenda right before RPG, I think, meets again before council next month. I'll have it on the agenda, assuming we don't have big changes, which I don't think we'll. Then that'll go to their approval. If they're okay with it, then we can finalize construction drawings and try to do it this summer.
When is State of the City? Is that February?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we would probably get feedback from the community if it were on the State of the City at that point too? Or would that not be something we'd be?
Well,
I'm not sure,
you can stand and talk, but they can't answer anything.
yeah, you're not gonna get any feedback, I don't think, from the council members.
City,
If there's
though. City residents.
residents may ask the question if it's on the State of the City agenda,
It'll probably be some
as
kind of
a
graphic
cast,
on
yeah.
it, and a brief mention like some of the other CIP projects.
So you may get a little feedback.
It'll probably look very similar, so I think we have
Yeah.
material due pretty soon for that.
If I recall, the city was gonna send out like a QR code questionnaire to the surrounding neighbors about this project.
That's what I was asking about.
And, yeah, and I don't think we finalized whether it was gonna be something like that, or if it was gonna just be another public meeting, which I still don't know the answer to.
Okay.
But I think if we wanna fast track it, I'm leaning towards QR code or some kind of otherwise link, with an online survey monkey kind of thing, just to speed it up.
So then Chairman Taddy and Commissioners, are you guys comfortable, telling Keith then that you are good with the current layout of the parking and the current layout of the speed bumps, and you are comfortable with staff moving forward with the wall as they see fit, and with the understanding that you guys would like at least some view fencing in areas that don't affect residents?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, here.
I would ask that you not take away any of these spots, though, in lieu of the golf carts. If you can find a creative spot to shove the golf carts and not use up spots, because I think those 25 spots, when Pat's got games and practices, are gonna come in handy.
I surmise that once, the engineers get their hands on it, these yellow lines are gonna squeeze a little bit closer together, we're gonna get a few more.
And the golf carts just go park on the grass anyways.
I was gonna say, yes, golf carts drive up on the grass anyway, and maybe some of these smaller obscure areas, maybe you could designate that for those golf carts to drive up in there.
Actually, one of the things I was thinking is if we're leaning towards something like a walking path or anything like that, we'll have to have, maintenance will have to be able to get their
Mhm.
vehicles up on there anyway, so
Mhm.
that somewhere in the corner in that top left where it's kind of tucked back and there's that water, I call it the water campus, but Liberty has a pressure reducing vault right there, that we can hug,
Mhm.
because they're golf carts, they're gonna crush a water line or a valve, so I was leaning more towards something on that left side, where we can designate kind of maybe it's a big rectangle instead of designated stalls, so they
Mhm.
can make their own spots.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect that anyone would use golf cart parking that far away.
Honestly,
Good point.
honestly, what's gonna happen is they're gonna.
They're
They're
gonna
gonna
drive
park
here.
They're gonna park
Yeah.
on grass, really.
And we can, at a future meeting, we don't have to worry about a landscape team or anything we'd want in the corner now, but we
Yeah.
can address that later.
We don't have that scope even in the CIP project, because I think we're kind of unsure exactly what we're doing on Camelback, and I think this rolls into it, because we want theming on the whole thing anyways. So we don't have that in scope, so we wouldn't attack it on these two projects very heavily, just whatever we have to restore.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Litchfield Square Park Update. Presenter, John Froke.
You got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
Well,
job.
City Planner and Special Projects Manager.
That's me, thank you. Pleasure to be here. So this is the last board and commission group that I have not presented in front of, so I'm pleased to be here tonight. I recognize many of the names. I've been out here working first as a planning consultant, hard to believe a year ago, October, and started working on some zoning cases that the city manager asked me to focus on. And then about this time last year, the manager said, hey, we're gonna be having some staff retirements. Be thinking about, was there an opportunity, people that you would know that would wanna manage Litchfield Square? So, I talked to him a little bit more about that, thought about it, and so, through a bit of a recruiting process, I transitioned to be both the city planner and also the project manager, after Woody Skelton retired. And I've known Woody for probably about 25 years. So, great to be working out here, love Litchfield Park, worked out here as a kid. My dad was the maintenance landscape pool guy over on Villanueva, so I learned how to drive out here a long time ago when I shouldn't have been driving. That was a different era back in the 70s, so it's fun to be out here working, so it's a privilege to be out here working. So enough about that. So I do manage the planning and zoning department, as well as any special project that the city manager has me working on, and I am the project manager for Litchfield Square. So I've got some handouts for you. So I'm gonna give you an update, if you don't mind passing those around. I think you've probably seen those exhibits. I can also pass these around. So this is the overall concept for Litchfield Square, and these are a little bit out of date, the two boards are, but I'm gonna pass those to Susan, and you can pass those around. So, forgive me if you're new, or if you already know all this, but for about the last 15 years, the city has been assembling land in basically the city center. And I have that electronically, I can send that out to you as well.
Thank you.
And so, through the course of, probably the last 15 years, the project was conceived first at the city center, and then, through a marketing effort about 3 years ago, the project's been branded as Litchfield Square. And so, a couple things on that. I heard one of the commissioners ask about the post office, box, the mailbox on Old Litchfield Road. I can give you a little bit of, background on what's going on with that. But so, just north and west and east of City Hall, there's a lot of construction activity. So about 2 years ago, the city entered into what's called a CMAR. It's a construction manager at risk, which is a process to get the projects built. And so, the city has a CMAR with Aiken Gardner Construction. They're out of Chandler. And they've been on site here for the better part of 18 to 24 months. And so the heavy equipment that you see out here, that's them doing the work, and then their sub-consultants. So recently, after Woody retired last summer and I took over, you can now drive on Honeysuckle just north of City Hall here, just to the west here behind Kyle is La Loma Avenue. So that'll be a north-south street that will be built from Wigwam Boulevard north up into Litchfield Square. There's new parking lots that are going in, public parking. I'm really here to talk to you about the park, but I can talk all things Litchfield Square. The park itself, it is a construction site, so the areas where Aiken Gardner doesn't want the general public is fenced off, but now that the perimeter roads around Litchfield Square Park are being built, you can start to see how big the park actually is going to be. I think that'll be a really nice centerpiece to the project. And the next time you meet, there should be sod laid for the interim improvements to the park itself. I look back in the notes, just kind of piecing together past discussions with RPG. So Woody brought some of the concepts to you at your meetings. I think the first one was in January 11th, so about 3 years ago. And then June 9th, a few months before I started here, June 9th of 2022, he brought some of the concept drawings, thank you, back to you. And then obviously I'm here tonight to give you an update. So the park itself, it will be bounded by 4 sides of public streets. So this is Village Parkway, which is pretty much done. It's not open to traffic yet, open to the public. The focus of the construction, about the time I started with the city, was to get Litchfield Road rebuilt with the traffic circle. Village Parkway, which is pretty much open from Litchfield Road. Here's La Loma Avenue that I mentioned. We're sitting here tonight at City Hall. This is Desert Avenue. So just for some orientation, the church at Litchfield Park is up here. The section of Village Parkway from Old Litchfield Road to Desert Avenue is under construction now. And they were actually paving this morning right before the rain hit. So if you go out there today, you can kind of walk up in this area and see the angled parking. It'll all be public parking. There will be some more work on Old Litchfield Road. The post office, the mailbox was removed today temporarily. We've been working with the local postmaster. The mailbox itself was sitting about right in here, and it will be relocated. And a nuance, and forgive me if I'm giving you too much detail on the mailbox, but the postmaster requires that any new mailbox be ADA compliant, Americans with the Disabilities Act. So it has to be accessible by vehicle as well as somebody either on foot or in a wheelchair. So the box, when it's relocated, it'll have the chute. So from a vehicle, you can drop your mail in. On the other side will be a pull down, like the old toaster oven, and then you can put the mail in on the other side if you're walking, or if you're somewhat impaired mobility-wise. So that will be relocated, reinstalled, I should say, on a platform, concrete platform that meets ADA standards for construction. There will be some reworking of Old Litchfield Road. The landscape median is going to be redone just southeast of the church. I'd like to focus a little bit on the park. So most of the perimeter roads are done. If you've been watching the work over the last maybe 6 weeks, there's been a stockpile of material, soil. I don't have a very good sense of smell, but about a month ago, we had a lot of manure, mulch brought in. That's being blended with soil, so it's the right consistency. So when Kyle's group takes over the maintenance, once the park opens up in a few months, that it'll have the right sub-bed for the sod to be laid. So we meet weekly with Aiken Gardner, the construction company. They told us this morning that the sod will probably start to be laid. It'll be overseeded with winter lawn. We'll probably start laying out the turf. I believe January 29th is the date, weather permitting, so just a couple weeks from now. The park will look significantly different. You might recall, if you were on RPG, when Woody was here about a year or so ago, there will be a public bathroom building up at the northwest corner of the park. We have council direction to make sure that the second bathroom building, which will be down about in here on the east side of the park, this would be, again, this is Desert Avenue. Ribbons Tea House is right here, just for reference. On the corner, that's the switching yard for, I want to say Mountain Bell, but it's Cox.
Centrally.
Thank you. One of those. So, yeah, Ma Bell. We'll have a very large turf area. We're going to be putting in some playground equipment on the south side of the Village Parkway. We're working out some details with the landscape architect. In order to complete Litchfield Square, through the course of the construction manager at risk, there's what's called a guaranteed maximum price, or GMP. So so far there's been 5 GMPs approved, well, actually 6 now. 5 guaranteed maximum price. They're basically contracts that have gone to council. So I was here for one of those when Woody took GMP 5 to council, I believe in March. And then I took GMP 6, which we're anticipating will be the last contract to go to council. I took that to council on November 15th. It was approved. And so GMP 6 will be, basically it's a phased construction process. So GMP 6 will finish the interim improvements for the park, and then it'll finish La Loma Avenue from Wigwam north. So the area just west of City Hall is going to be completely redone with a brand new street with a landscape median in the middle. That'll be done as part of GMP 6. We'll finish the interim park improvements, like I mentioned. There's some other loose ends that are being done. Desert Avenue will completely be rebuilt east of City Hall. We'll have a much better streetscape, if you will, west of the restaurants and the shops on Old Litchfield Road. This section there's actually a landscape median on this section of Desert Avenue from Honeysuckle north. These traffic circles are pretty much in. They're a smaller scale than what we have on the arterial street. Lots of landscaping going in. Think about this time, actually it was Friday, so last week, a week ago today, the date palms were being delivered. I'm not sure, are those date palms, or they fan palms? I don't know. California fans. Those were being delivered. Those were actually installed on Friday on this section of Village Parkway south of the church. So we'll finish up with GMP 6 by the target date that we have is to finish this project, the infrastructure, all the water, sewer, electrical lines, by Labor Day weekend of this year, so 9 months from now. We are working with a local development company on, this is Lot 3, just north of the park. So we've got, that was sold to Mike Hurth and his company about 2 months before I started with the city. So he just resubmitted his plans for a 2-story mixed-use project on Lot 3, just north of the park. That'll be restaurant space, retail, offices, restaurant space. So we're hoping that he breaks ground sometime in 2024 for Lot 3. The significance of that is that we don't want to be the only entity as a city building in Litchfield Square. We want private development, so we're hoping that Lot 3 will develop. We are working with another company, another development company who's interested in buying the rest of Litchfield Square from the city, all the different individual lots, and her company would build a mixed-use project. There's been some conversations with council on that in executive session. We're still in what's called a letter of intent or LOI stage with that development company. Obviously, the market has shifted a little bit and softened over the last few months, so that process has slowed a little bit. But there still is interest from the development company to buy the rest of the project. The park, obviously, the park will stay in city ownership for however long forever is, but that's not part of the sale. So, anyways, lots of good things happening. Welcome to take any comments or input, things that you might be hearing out in your community, or if there's any concerns or anything that the RPG may have tonight.
Question. So you said that they're gonna start putting grass down. What is the overall timeline for the whole park?
Good question. So, through the chair, the sod will go in. So let me talk a little bit more detail on the park. If I flip the board around, this is what you're looking at. So the subgrade is pretty much done. Like I said, weather permitting, we'll hopefully have sod down last week of January, first part of February. There's a pretty significant promenade that basically wide sidewalk that goes east-west. The concept there that I think was presented to RPG by Woody is that this would be wide enough and the concrete thick enough to support either Kyle's maintenance vehicles, or we could set up food trucks or other events. The idea is that a lot of the events that Tricia and Patrick and their group puts together are probably at some point going to move to the park. To answer your question, the interim improvements, the sod, the 2 bathroom buildings, a lot of the landscaping, the irrigation system that needs to go with that should all be completed by Labor Day. What's not funded, and we would come back and talk to, get your input, would be some of the details on the amphitheater and the building, kind of the green room that we would have for performers. Once we get, identify a funding source, we would come back to you, to RPG, show you the concepts, kind of like what Keith is doing with Callenbach Park. So I would be coming back to you at a later date to show you the concepts here. The bathroom building was presented to RPG, I believe, at probably either your January 2021 or June 2022 meeting. That's designed, and it'll be per what RPG, was presented at the last time that Woody was here. So that building will go in as part of, the improvements finishing up by Labor Day. All the, perimeter parking, there is no parking on Village Parkway, but the street side parking for Desert, Honeysuckle, and, Loloma, that'll all be completed as well. And so we'll have what we hope will be abundant public parking. People can get up to the park and have a close place to park and enjoy the park itself.
So what won't be done by Labor Day? What about like playground or?
Yeah, the playground, right, so, good question. So the amphitheater will not be done. The carousel is not part of GMP 6. That's, and the clock tower, will not be, it's an unfunded project. Most of the playground will be installed. We don't have funding for the canopy cover. We're trying to find a funding source, we do want the playground covered, with some kind of a shade structure. The idea that with GMP 6 is that, Aiken Gardner and their subcontractors would put in the bases and foundations for the shade structure in the appropriate locations. We would cover them so it would not be a tripping hazard for either kids or parents. So we would come back later and do the shade structure, but there would be some playground equipment. Mentioned the bathroom. The water feature, through this part of the park, is not part of the plan for the park, but all the other turf areas would be installed. So we're known for a lot of green space and a beautiful community, so we think that at least the interim improvements will kind of get us to the next level of another great, open space and public space for our residents.
Good question. The center here, is that a carousel?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's unfunded right now.
Not part of the plans is what unfunded means.
Correct.
Commissioner Gertz?
Is it still the plan that when we're fully built out, commercially, mixed use, what have you, that there may be parking structures that replace some of the just flat parking lots that we have, or?
That is correct.
Okay.
So, great question. So this is a concept. The square probably will not develop quite like this, but the idea is that this would be a walkable, community in urban setting that would be in keeping. I was a Glendale planning director forever, and I'm trying to de-Glendale myself based on what's important to Litchfield Park. But yes, we would have a urban setting, in keeping with the building heights, that's permitted by zoning, that council approved a few years ago. But for instance, I'll take Lot 3 as an example. That'll be surface parking on Lot 3, with their commercial building. There is a project off the square up at Scout Park where there might be some options for future parking structures. The group that we're working with on the letter of intent, or LOI, her company would be building commercial buildings, probably 2 to 3 story, and would be including some level of parking in parking structure for parking garages. So that is the plan. That would have to go through design review board, which I also am managing that process. So we've not taken anything on the letter of intent to DRB yet. We're not quite there with commercial developer on the rest of the square. But yeah, that's the idea, is that we would, in a compact environment like this, it's not a suburban setting like, say, the commercial centers that were discussed on Keys around the Ellenback Park, but this is more of a urban setting, kind of a destination, walking, once you park, then you become a pedestrian. You start to enjoy the amenities that would be found in the square.
Good deal, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
And just for clarification, was Palm Plaza, is that part of the infrastructure that is being put in soon?
Good question. So Palm Plaza there will be some level of improvements in Palm Plaza. It may not be quite as grandiose as what is presented here, but we'll make sure that it looks nice. And the idea is that we would have lighting and a very, how can I describe it, a pleasing place for people to visit the park. Thank you.
So is the goal by Labor Day to have it where, like, someone could actually go to the park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Date's subject to change, but we've been working since probably about the time I took GMP 6 to council that, hey, you've been out here for a while now, Aiken Gardner. Keith's getting a lot of questions. I'm getting a lot of questions from the community. I'm sure you are too. Our city manager gets a lot of inquiries, hey, when's this project going to be done? And so we've been working in a very collaborative manner with Aiken Gardner, but we've settled on Labor Day weekend. That's the plan.
And that, you expect all the roads to be open by then, all the, yeah.
Gotta have the big guy over here approve the road, so, but yeah, that's the plan.
So excuse me, I remember speaking with Woody before when aesthetic-wise, he was going to try to incorporate this logo into one of these spaces. So when you look down at the aerial, or even as you walk across it, you're walking across the Litchfield Park logo in stones or...
Yes, we are, thank you for bringing that up. So I don't know, is that called a starburst? I know there's a name for I didn't wear my Litchfield Park jacket tonight, but we are incorporating that image into different components of the square. If you go out to they're actually embedded etched into the concrete in some locations. They're probably fenced off right now, but that is the plan. At the Welcome Center, which is more of a plaza, it's taking shape right on the corner of Wigwam and Litchfield Road. On the northeast corner, there's some seating areas, concrete, that have been poured. The palm frond motif that is common that you'd see out in the community is being incorporated into the metal work. But yes, that logo will be incorporated into the square.
I think we had talked about something you'd be able to see from like a satellite image.
Aerial,
like
yeah.
a large scale.
Do you remember?
In one of the circles.
Do you remember the black and white drawing?
Yeah, the old one.
What was that? That was from the corner,
Shoot, I have it at home too. The old one.
I'll look through our files and make sure that we're incorporating something to that effect. I know I overlapped with Woody for a few months before he retired, but I will look into that and follow up with you.
Well, it was kind of bringing a historical piece into a new development, because we do have a picture of, I don't recall what it was, but...
It was just like a plaza. It was not where the flagpole was, I don't think. I think it was more on the library, front ground of the library area, kind of in there. But that was, remember, Sonny, that picture? And it was...
Pictures, yes.
Yeah, I saved mine. I mean, it was from the 30s.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's where the library is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
An aerial photo, and it had...
It was just sort of
logo to it.
off concentric circles or something, but it
Okay.
was,
I'll look for that.
yeah.
If I may, since I filled out a form to speak.
Mr. Colbreth?
You stay up there.
Okay.
Is the area where, eventually we hope we find funding and there'll be something here, is that still, float?
Yes, there's, I didn't know what this, I learned I've been doing planning and zoning work for a long time. I had learned something, let's see. There's I think it's an old English term, there's what's called, I believe it's a belvedere, that is it's a retaining wall that would allow people in this section, let me go back to the park. In fact, it might even be, yeah, it's not labeled as belvedere, but, our landscape architect, was using that phrase a few months ago with Keith and I, but the idea is that this area would be elevated, and then you would be able to look down on the amphitheater area and the stage. But yeah, that's still in the works.
Okay, and then is the amphitheater, even though it's not funded now, is it still something that the council would consider, or you guys are still talking about the possibility of, if not in the grandiose like we had planned a year or so ago, something that we could still do our concerts from and that kind of thing from?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we are still desirous of having, some kind of a facility there, so we could have those events at the park.
Okay, and then, Aiken Gardner's been out here and made a lot of money off this project. Wonder if they would want to sponsor a playground or something. That's what
we can certainly
I'm
ask.
bringing that.
Not bashful for asking that question.
Yeah.
And then, I think you really covered it, and that's really neat that you're gonna have that ready by Labor Day, that's the plan.
Correct.
How will residents be able to actually utilize that if you're gonna start having other construction all around it, building-wise?
Good question, Sonny, so through the chair. That was brought up actually this morning because we're doing a lot of our coordination has been with the merchants and the owners here, as well as the church representative, and they're usually at the table, each week, working to make sure that we're coordinating and meeting their needs. Like they had some big events, obviously, last fall. The question came up this morning is, okay, when Mr. Hurth starts developing, how is that gonna play in if Keith approves opening Village Parkway? How's that gonna play out with mixing the general public traffic, construction traffic? And so we would, in the instances, I'll just call it Lot 3, for reference purposes, they would have a temporary construction fence. And we would probably instruct their construction personnel to park. They wouldn't be parking on Village Parkway. I've noticed in the last month, the Aiken Gardner employees, they've been shifting parking over here. They're now parking just north of City Hall because they're starting to do the work on the Loma. So it's gonna start kind of like the balloon where you push one area on a balloon and then it moves somewhere else. We're gonna be starting to get a little constricted here as everything closes in and construction progresses.
And then my last comment is actually to the commission and you. I know it has been discussed off and on throughout several years, having functional seating, functional tables, things like that, even tables that have like a checkerboard on the top, seating that or even someone could bring paddles and a concrete ping pong table could be set up. Would you be open to this commission coming up with some ideas and putting those in?
Yeah.
I would like to see you do that.
Yeah. In GMP 5 or 6, there are some permanent, Keith had mentioned this over on Camelback Park, potentially on that project, including permanent board game tables. The square is funded for that, at least for a couple of permanent board games. I believe the Goodyear Square as that, if I'm not mistaken, and so I've been there a few times.
Steal some of their
Yeah.
ideas. It would be prettier.
Yeah, they will, they will.
But thanks for the work
Yeah.
you're doing on it.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
May I ask another question?
Fire away.
Right where your thumb is,
Yes.
anything going on with that?
So, I'm a bit of a storyteller, so.
Your thumb.
Yeah.
Northwest corner of Wigwam and Mitchell Road, so.
I think, if you don't mind, I think maybe we should just keep it directed to Litchfield Square for now, since
Oh,
that's
is it
not
not?
on the
There,
agenda.
there's no activity on that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a zoning case that I presented over a year ago, and the council was over gone down, but there's nothing active on it now.
Okay.
So I have a follow-up question on the points that were non-funded, for example, the water feature, the clock tower, and the carousel.
Correct.
So what's the time frame in the process for them to become?
I will work with the city manager. This is my project, so, whenever we're done with all the work leading up to Labor Day, we are still gonna be working, I will still be working with them on the so it's a thought process that I'm having with Mr. Williams, where we're looking at, okay, what's the next thing that we need to be doing with the square, and so, I know with him having young kids, he definitely wanted that carousel, and I know that was tough for him to let that one go, but I am working with him on a weekly basis on what's next for the square.
And John, Chairman, if you don't mind, that play structure or structures, for clarification, I think that the intent is to have a big kids and a small kids, and that may be an area that RPG can assist with. And can you confirm that there's some budget in, I think, GMP 6
Correct.
devoted to that? And is there already a play structure or two, or is that something that RPG can help coordinate with?
Thank you, Tricia. So, if you may not be able to read it on your plan, but there is a aviation play zone structure that's depicted on the east end of what I'll just call the playground area of the park. We've had to cut that out, just from a budget standpoint. The plane itself, which is really cool, obviously we're close to Luke Air Force Base, and the whole aviation influence with that sector with Goodyear and Litchfield Park and the base. We've had to cut that out, but, I would come back to RPG with further plans as we get a little bit further into the design details for the park. And you're correct, there would be a playground area for bigger kids or older kids, and then obviously for younger kids as well.
And just a follow-up question, I don't know, was the clock tower a part of a different city hall building or a renovated city hall building, or did that stand alone? I know it was Commissioner Schwakey, right? It was
The clock tower was standalone.
standalone?
As part of this, it was gonna be like, I'll meet you at the clock tower, or it was
Yeah.
Correct.
kind of.
Gotta watch the clock tower so you know what time it is, was
Yeah.
part of that,
It
too.
was gonna be a unique feature for that park.
That's identified right here, so it's City Hall is here, and then the clock tower would be right in the center of the park.
Ask another question, did you have a price on that, even though it's not funded?
I do not have a price on that.
Because when he mentioned David Swacky, it reminded me of the Kiwanis, Litchfield Park, Litchfield Kiwanis.
Mm-hmm.
He had expressed that they may be interested in contributing to something like that.
Yeah.
They like to contribute, and they like to be recognized. It doesn't have to be named Kiwanis or anything, but something that they could say, hey, we have to do that.
What about Kiwanis Amphitheater?
Very
Moon
good.
Valley.
You're right. I just had one more question. So in the amphitheater, I know we had a discussion regarding at one point where the 3 curved walls are, and then is the ground backed up to the top of that? Do you remember so it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be leveled seating, or elevated seating.
Excellent. And we really liked the waterway there too.
Understood. That was a hard, conversation with the city manager and with Aiken Gardner to have to cut that out. It's a big ticket item, and, I was tasked by the manager to try to get the cost of GMP 6 down, and so working with the manager's office, unfortunately, we had to cut that out for now.
I would think from a maintenance standpoint, the water area is equal to what the carousel is going to be in maintenance. I don't know if there's ever been any cost studies on it, owning and operating and maintaining a carousel. Just gonna guess, it's pricey.
I've never done one.
We had a question at one point too, is it a functional carousel or is it a ornamental, for lack of a better word, carousel?
There has been discussions other than just a carousel. I think we've discussed, removable flagpoles, a removable, some kind of base to be able to put like a standalone Christmas tree, during the holidays. There's been multiple discussions of what we can actually put in that. I just know that, city manager and some staff we're kind of stuck on that carousel theme, but it's not just a locked of, that's what's gonna be there. There's other options that have been discussed for.
Is the carousel, is that an ongoing operational expense in terms of people operating it, or a liability if we don't have people operating it? Like, how would that work?
That's it.
It would be.
That's a pipe dream at this point, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying the waterway is a lot less, there's not people there pushing the water along, right, and supervising the
Well,
water.
there could be.
Mr. Chairman Toddy on a bicycle with paddles.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
And
Tourism pump
permitted.
itself.
I was involved in Arrowhead Town Center, and that opened up, it's hard to believe, 30 years ago last fall, and it opened with I was young back then.
I
so
remember that.
Yeah. Carousel.
There was a carousel there,
Yep.
and Westcor, who's the developer of the mall, it's now Macerich, their intentions were good, but eventually, I'm not sure when the carousel was removed from the food court, but I'm sure it came down to maintenance and probably a liability issue.
And then we'll have an opportunity later. There were a couple other ideas that were on our survey that we hit the neighborhood with. Do you remember any offhand?
The neighborhood about that.
The carousel was not on one of our surveys, but
No.
the clock tower was on one of the surveys, the waterway was on one of the surveys.
There was a totem pole.
Great memory, there was a,
Mm-hmm.
It's identified as Peace Pole, but
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
item, 35, which is.
how,
On the,
is this
no,
on?
no, it's on the big one. It's on the big one.
Are they also no longer funded, or is it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gonna come back as a separate project. Yeah, the Peace Pole would be, next to the clock tower.
Okay.
So in terms of the things that we might pick up again, it would be play structure. We've already talked about the bathroom, so I think that's all locked in. It'd be, what we do with seating, or just like activity-related amenities in the park.
Correct.
And then those are the things that there's funding for, so we expect to have those conversations over the next year, probably? Okay. And anything else, as funding becomes available, anything we do ahead of time is a bit maybe premature, or just to help to establish budgetary direction.
Yeah, I would work with Tricia and Patrick, come back and see you again with some concept drawings, before we made any decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much,
Okay,
sir.
thank you, appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Sean.
thank you.
And thank you, Sonny, for your comments and your opinions, too.
Thank you.
Staff reports, Public Works monthly report, presents for Kyle Ames, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Chairman Taddy, members of the commission. Short couple weeks, due to the holidays, so it was more of us just kind of catching up on some projects and getting some stuff done that, has kind of been put on the back burner there for a little while. So, I'm sure everybody here in the commission's seen the new flashing yield signs at the Litchfield roundabout, as well as the, speed radar signs that were installed on Litchfield Road and Camelback. Keith and I, he had to take off, but Keith and I have worked for months on this project, trying to get this finished up. So I don't know if anybody here has noticed, but there's a great reduction on speed with Camelback and Litchfield as soon as we put these speed signs out.
I can tell you
Unfortunately-
there's a great reduction in noise as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
so I'm on the Loma, and you probably hear the same thing. It's a lot quieter.
Does the city
I
get a,
slowed down when they flashed at me today.
That's a good feature on those speed solar lights, because most people think that they're getting a speed radar ticket. So, you know, if people have not passed through there, they don't know anything about them. That's their first assumption. I do travel Camelback and Litchfield a lot, and it's funny to see once those lights start flashing, people lock their brakes up. So they're working. So we're really happy with the results. City manager's happy with the results. PD's happy with the results. So we'll see how long this goes, and if we have to make any more adjustments, we will in the future. We've been working with Bay Alarms for the access control systems and camera systems. I'm anticipating Bay Alarms will be done by the end of next week. We had a couple hiccups, but I think we're getting pretty close to the finished project. I was notified by Commissioner Colbreth about missing wayfinding sign in Indian School that I was not aware about, so I am working with Summit West to get that replaced. So we don't know what happened. We don't know if it was stolen, broke through a windstorm, a storm just disappeared. We're not sure, but we'll get it replaced here shortly. I still have been working with general contractors to get some quotes for Saks Park remodel as well as Tierra Verde Lake docks. I have a few quotes. I'm waiting for potentially one more, and then we'll start getting this project moving. And last thing would be the fertilizing injection program. We were able to purchase a new injecting system for our equipment. This is to inject organic matter into the root systems of the orange trees. I am trying everything that I can to save these orange trees, the ones that we currently have. We're going to give this a shot. We've done a test run of about 15 trees up Old Litchfield Road. I'm going to give it a month or so and see if I can see any turnaround to help with the soil compaction, breaking up, getting some aeration in there. So we'll wait and see how this works. If it works, we'll continue to use it into the future. But as of right now, it's kind of a test run to see if this is actually going to be beneficial for these orange trees and trees in general. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. The soil injection treatment, how would you know that would be working? What would be the signs? Would it be like, say, around March, you would see new growth on the tree?
Yeah, so right now it's kind of difficult because of the cold. We're nearing freezing temperatures. That's why we haven't done any planting. We're kind of waiting for the springtime to come around. But yeah, so orange trees, if they have some kind of deficiencies in the soil or their nutrients, they'll get the curled leaves. They yellow really easily. They drop their fruit faster than normal. When orange trees are stressed out, they actually produce more fruit. So I'll keep monitoring it through the rest of this winter and into the spring and see if we can visually. We did before and after pictures, so we've taken pictures of these trees, and then we'll wait till this comes spring and we'll take some more pictures and we can kind of compare them and see if they're actually working.
Right on.
It's the cheaper alternative right now to try to save these trees versus removing and replanting. So we're gonna give this a shot.
I'm sure you have trees in similar conditions that you didn't treat, so you have kind of a control group and a test group and see what's.
Neat data collection method.
Yep.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, question, regarding the new stop signs around the flagpole. I think when those are put in, was the street sign removed that had the cross streets?
What side?
I think like near the wigwam, like where the wigwam.
Yeah,
is.
so it was a double post.
Yeah.
We have to make a custom bracket.
Okay.
So staff's working on it. I'm hoping we can get it up in the next week or two.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Community and Recreation Services Monthly Report presented Tricia Kramer, Director of Community and Recreation Services.
Thank you, Chairman Taddy and Commissioners. Just a couple of quick updates are for aquatics. Our aquatics coordinator has been working on our 2024 programming schedule in the off-season. So that should be posted fairly shortly, actually. Usually the lifeguard training begins late February, early March. So I know that Sammy and Pat have been working to coordinate getting everything entered and ready for people to start registering. Preschool was off for a couple of weeks for winter break, and they're just now getting back into the swing of things. In terms of community services, last time we met, it was just before the scheduled Space Force flag raising. That unfortunately was canceled due to rain. There's not really a way to reschedule those, so we paid our respects, and we'll move forward with the next one in the spring. The Holiday Home Decorating Contest, winners were announced and provided their winnings and lawn signs. We also had about 40 decorated homes that were on our Holiday Home Tour. Commissioner Faith reminded last month that Google Map needed to be put up. We did that right away, and hopefully some of you were able to make use of it. So that was nice to have out there and have people able to go take that tour at their leisure. In terms of special events, we have 3 big events going on in January. First being this weekend, the Native American Festival, the Litchfield Park Gathering. It's the 32nd year. We're excited to welcome the Native American artists back to our community this weekend. It should be a beautiful weekend, so hopefully, I know most of you do take the opportunity when you can to stop by the festivals. Hopefully you'll do that again this weekend. We have our Arts in the Park concert, a Motown experience, not this weekend, but the following Sunday, the exact date, January 21st. Free to the public, as you know, and welcome you to join us at that and share that info with other residents and friends. And finally, at the end of the month, January 27th, is the Trout Fishing Derby. Our morning session is full. That's the competitive session that everyone wants in on. So we do have an afternoon session, recreational. A lot of times families with young children will come in the afternoon to kind of get away from all the chaos of the morning and just have a leisurely time fishing with each other. And that's what's available. So if any of you are interested, feel free to sign up for it or call us and we'll give you more info. And Pat's got some good stuff going on with sports. It's a busy time for that, and so I'll let him share that info with you.
Thank you, Tricia. So, excuse me, we did have our makeup for the cornhole tournament. We ended up having 15 teams come out and play some cornhole. We had a pretty good turnout for even doing the remake and stuff and being close to holidays, so we're excited to still be able to host that. And then we're planning on next year getting back in November. So our winter t-ball and basketball season started last weekend. We're going into week 2. Everyone seemed to have a great time playing week 1, ready to go out and play from all the practicing they did and get back in season, so we're excited for that. Our spring flag football, basketball, and soccer season registration did open January 2nd. We currently have 248 kids in all three sports done, which is, last I checked, we had about 40 kids more in this year compared to last year's numbers. Soccer is having a pretty good turnout. All our sports are up compared to last year's, but soccer is the biggest one for sure. We are, on February 24th is the Litchfield Park tank race that's presented by Waste Management this year. We have 93 runners so far registered in that. And then our Strong Minds Run Club that started last week, it's an 8-week session for kids to go out and learn skills in running and keeping them active. And then week 8 is, and with them being registered in the run of a race that they want to do. So we had 14 runners, which we're excited to see that we got that. We've tried to do a couple other ones, and we definitely added more kids in the session compared to the previous sessions. So other than that, that's pretty much all that I have. Tennis registration started at January 2nd too, and we're full in the older kids through May, and we just still have limited spaces in the group lessons. So.
Although it's not on here, were you guys looking at starting some lessons for pickleball?
So the Bigger Edge Sports Training, they did offer youth lessons. That was supposed to be starting this upcoming weekend, but we had 7 total in the 3 classes, so they are not going to be able to run them this winter. They're hoping to try that again in the spring. So we are we're looking to see if they wanted to do youth pickleball. So some transferred over to the spring that weren't able to start. So hopefully we get them in numbers for them to be able to do that and get that started.
All right.
But if you offered it for youth and adults, you'd have a lot better numbers.
A lot of adults learning pickleball.
Yep. I'll definitely bring that along to them, but they just started that this year, so hopefully get the advertisement for spring to get those numbers up, and then they'll bring our activity guide for next year as well that we're working on.
Yes, sir.
For context, how many competitive fishing spots do you sell for the morning session?
This year, 264 spaces.
Holy moly.
Wow. Yeah.
It's packed in
You
there.
gotta be.
Each space, we allow up to 4 people per space. 4 people or 4 poles. So 1 person with 4 poles, 2 with 2, and so on. But that's the max in each
How
space.
many did you sell?
264 times 4 poles.
Where are all those people
Yes.
parked?
We're gonna do angle.
Find a way.
Wherever they can.
Utilizing new Staggs Park parking.
10-foot spaces like they have been. We've kept the sizes the same.
Do they get to pick their space?
Yes, first come, first serve. So there is an online map where they can select the spot on it, and that goes to them as long as it's available. If it's not available, it's kind of grayed out on the map. Yes.
They pick them ahead of time.
They pick up when they
Kinda like picking
register.
an RV spot online. kind of
Yeah,
thing. Got all high tech.
Yeah.
we're trying.
Maybe next year you need tiered pricing.
Right?
Yeah, there have been discussions that there are certain spaces that are favorites and that people would be willing to pay more for
money,
those
sure.
spaces. Whether we do that or not, I guess we'll see how it goes this year, but it is an option.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, guys. Approval of minutes. Presenter Tricia Kramer, Director of Community and Recreation Services.
Thank you, Chairman Taddy and Commissioners. The minutes of the December 14th regular meeting are in your packets. I'll give you an opportunity to review them if you haven't, and then entertain a motion, or if anybody has any corrections that they'd like made. And I would say, in particular, if you guys want to double check the Section 6 business, item B, the Camelback Park discussion, just to make sure that's accurate.
Motion, we approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
I'll second.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Is there anyone that needed a minute more? Or you-
I wasn't here, so I'm not.
Yeah, I wasn't here either.
You guys want to take another minute before we vote?
It's okay. We really
Well, I
can't say.
can't the accuracy.
Yeah.
Well, I believe the motion was approved,
Mm-hmm.
so we can move on.
Thank you, Commissioner.
2024 meeting schedule. Presented Tricia Kramer, Director of Community and Recreation Services.
Thank you, Chairman Teddy and Commissioners. This is more an annual formality, setting each year's commission meetings, the regular meetings of the commission. So for 2024, we need to do the same. Currently, our meetings are held the second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. here. I will defer to the commission as to whether they're good with that and want to carry that forward into 2024, or if you'd like to further discuss timing and dates.
I like where we are now.
Yeah, I'm good with
And
the
time
same.
and date.
Agreed.
I think that with enough going on in the city right now, it's good to keep it how it is.
We need a move and
Yes,
second.
please.
I move we keep our meetings the same date and time.
I'll second that.
2024.
Do we need to specify second Thursday of every month? Or is that,
I think same date and time covers it.
we have a second? Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is passed. Yard of the Quarter nominations. Presented Tricia Kramer, Director of Community and Recreation Services.
Thank you again, Chairman and Commissioners. We received 3 nominations for Yard of the Quarter for this fourth quarter, which that grouping ended December 31st of 2023. So now comes time to vote, and staff recommends that you move to approve the 3 nominated homes for judging as Yard of the Quarter for this fourth quarter.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3 homes for Yard of the Quarter. 1066 Ora Vista, 951 Tornasol, and 506 West Wigwam Boulevard.
Are there any questions?
I have a
Question.
I think we need a second.
Were these commissions submitted, or did we get any public?
These were
again-
submitted by the commission.
Yeah, 3 different commissioners.
Second.
Are there any other questions?
I guess I have a comment, and that is that we need to remember that there was a theme to this one. So when you're voting, remember that the theme was the grass, right?
Hmm?
Yeah.
I believe you're right,
Yeah.
Andy. I'll send that reminder when I.
They're supposed to be nominated by
the Google
their
form.
grass. And so my question was, at the time, is it real grass or fake grass, or do we
I
care?
don't think that was taken into consideration.
I don't either.
Because it wasn't on the
No.
directive email
So
to
just
sign nominations.
When you're voting, there was a sentence in there that directed you to focus on the grass.
So that said, is it perhaps a little bit of a window to maybe look at other nominations too?
No.
Is
I
that
don't
window
think we
closed?
can.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, we can't.
Then we can move forward with these nominations with that in mind, and perhaps the grass would be expanded to be inclusive of front yard view, front of the house view.
I think you just leave it as grass and.
Chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Copy that.
Then I'll second the motion with that in mind.
Are there any other questions? All in favor of moving forward with these 3 nominations for Yard of the Quarter, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, we have our nominations. Get ready to vote, guys.
I'll email that to you.
Have we always been voting on the nominations? We've never done that
Oh,
before.
so,
We've never done this
I've never
before.
noticed it, but I'm not opposed to doing it.
No,
We've done it once or twice, so we've had to
Yeah,
approve the
we're just
nomination.
trying to,
Really?
to clean it up a little moving forward, so it's,
Okay, I don't remember. That doesn't mean anything.
2024 Orange Street Painting Event, presenter Anthony Taddy, RPG chairperson. Okay, so our dates are March 6th and March 17th,
16.
or pardon me, 16th and 17th. We are looking at some considerations now, for example, buying the paint, making sure we have the materials ready, eyeing up some designs for T-shirts, potentially, maybe. And other than that, just keeping an eye on the timeline in which we'll start recruiting volunteers.
so I did create a, Facebook event for it and also put it on the website under news and announcements. So we've got that process started.
I'll reach out to the St. Thomas contact person this weekend, let them know, hey, this is the time frame we're looking at. Start spreading the word.
I know, who has the contact at Millennium? Is that you?
The city does,
Okay,
yeah.
'cause I know they
keep
bring out a lot of
Yeah.
kids to do their volunteer hours.
We've been in contact with them.
My daughter and Commissioner Schwartz's daughter, or son, pardon me, too, are, in touch with a handful of groups that need the volunteer hours, and they're kind of bolstering up the high school council advisory committee. Yeah, so very exciting stuff happening there, but they'll be able to kind of get around and spread the word a little bit more too.
Good.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Kyle, do you know if the paint is gonna be another shortage this year? It shouldn't be a problem?
No, we should be okay.
Okay.
Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
I did take your consideration from last month's meeting about reaching out to Moon Valley about potential sponsorship. I haven't received anything back yet, so I'll continue to see if I can get something from them.
Where are we gonna buy the paint?
It's Holgro's down off of Seventh Avenue in Lower Buckeye.
Wherever else you buy supplies from, Lowe's, or, I don't know, you know, any of those would be good candidates, I think. Anywhere we spend money.
Mm-hmm.
Who'd you talk to, Moon Valley?
It was just a generic number that I reached at their potential corporate office, I'm guessing. I do have the manager's number from the one off of Indian School down here, Stephanie, I think it was her name.
Mm-hmm.
I'll reach out to her, this next week and see if they're interested.
Any idea of how much money we'd be looking for sponsoring?
T-shirt?
Park range.
T-shirts
Last month we
and
thought
pizza.
500 for,
Yeah.
500 would cover 100 shirts if you can, and usually buy them at $5 a pop for a cheap silkscreen T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bad.
And then
I would
pizza
ask
after
for
the event.
1,000, or,
Yeah.
or two
Yeah,
500s, or four 250s.
$500
Yeah.
for pizza, $500 for shirts.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I don't even think we spent anywhere near that on pizza the last couple of
No,
years, too.
I think it was a few $100, if that, for last year.
Well, if you have
We
shirts, you're
didn't-
gonna need more pizza.
Yeah.
They're gonna be coming in droves.
You had a light
Agree.
volunteer group last year too, and we're
Yeah.
looking to bolster that,
We
so.
consider just multiple sponsors, logo on the shirt sort of stuff. You know, like platinum sponsor, I don't know, it's not that crazy, but you know, like, more money, bigger logo,
Yeah.
back of the shirt, front of the shirt, Ultra Park Paint, tree painting, 2024.
Caricature of Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought we were gonna do years so we could use.
Reuse the
reuse
shirts,
them.
yeah, probably not the year
We're
on it.
doing annual tree painting.
You realize we're painting in these shirts,
We
right?
came, we saw, we
Oh,
painted.
good point. Yeah.
No, but the
Maybe white
difference
shirts,
is
they're
that
good.
if you carry those sponsorships forward, they may not actually sponsor in future years. So
True.
that limits, if you start putting those on.
Yeah, you got a point there. Mr. Goldberg?
Right, I didn't fill out something to speak on this, but if I were to approach some people about sponsoring, much like Run T-shirts or that you've all seen, and you just mentioned several different logos on shirts. How much should we be asking for, from someone to get their logo on the shirt?
Good question. What do we think?
I think 500 sounds reasonable.
And they'd be used one time.
Yeah.
Is that the problem?
Sponsors are you getting then?
If you got two, I think it covers the.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
I started at 1,000 in case you only get one.
That seems steep.
Anyone else gonna ask?
Yeah.
That seems steep. I don't know what the normal, what success have we had in the city previous years with T-shirt sponsorships?
We typically do 200, 250 for the run, and I think it's at 250 right now, in order to be able to get your logo on the T-shirt in the smaller sizes.
So perhaps we would pick numbers that would kind of match those, and like you said, though, you could potentially not be able to use a shirt the following year if they don't want to sponsor again, right?
Well, but then, you don't count on using the same shirt the next year, because you're gonna get new sponsors again. You go to them, new sponsors.
And we have
You
to do
don't
that
buy
every year.
so many shirts that you feel like you have 200 left over. So I think you have some that, might have some that you have left over and you can use for different things. But say if I were to approach a bunch of guys at the Wigwam and I could get 5 people to do 250, that's pretty good. If I were to ask them to do 500, they might go, I don't know about that. But
So perhaps 2 sponsors, each at 250?
We don't have to limit it to two. I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't have to be a money-losing event, right?
Yeah.
It can, there's a budgetary overflow, we use it for.
Theoretically, you start paying for paint if you.
Yeah, exactly, it's just,
You know, we could have some sponsors for shirts, or sponsors that wanna supply, help supply the paint or the materials.
Well, we put all their logos on the shirts, though.
I don't think you wanna ask for a T-shirt sponsor, you just wanna sponsor the event, so that money can go
Yeah.
towards whatever.
Pizza,
Yeah.
shirts, paint,
Right.
brushes,
Do you think
whatever.
a T-shirt's a huge draw to a tree painting event?
100%, I think it is.
people like,
Yeah.
Everybody loves freebies.
Especially if it says Litchfield Park, orange tree painting, something nostalgic.
Who do we have that's gonna design it? Can we have to have somebody young and,
I have the perfect one. The first year we did it, there was a white handprint on Bird Lane that the kid in one of my groups did that I didn't know, that's still there. I think it would be awesome to have the white handprint in an orange tree or something like that, you know, with the handprint being the trunk. That could be kind of cool. That would be
and
cool.
it's cool.
yeah?
We have an artist.
What do we need to do? Because we all know people in businesses, right? If we settle on a certain amount, I mean, do we want to feel out contacts and then maybe next month have something more structured that we say, okay, this is the offering, and we can actually say, like, look, here's the form, it's X amount of money, and this gets your name on a T-shirt, and it goes to the sponsor and the tree painting. I agree that sponsoring specific things like shirts and paints and that sort of thing is a little bit too, like, oh, so we already have a tree sponsor, no, or this, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
money's money.
Just the event, I
One
think, is
pot.
the way to go. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just say,
No, I think this is more just a discussion that you guys are,
The city have like
Having-
a sponsorship form, used in other events, the necessary information.
yeah, we can come up with something that you guys can use.
And it would
Yeah.
serve as a receipt for them as well. Yes. In other words, something that they, say they donate and they wanna take it off their taxes, so you gotta give them something.
Yeah.
no?
So if we did 250 and stayed consistent with what the other groups in the city are doing.
I would just say, why doesn't each of you think about one person or one business, and that's 7 of you, and that should be a decent amount that would cover T-shirts, pizza, and then maybe any little bit towards supplies that, can help offset Kyle's budget line for that. I mean, if it turns out there's more, perhaps, say, Sunny knows a couple people, so much the better, but
Do we have like a flyer on the website,
not a flyer.
or a flyer, but like
Maybe,
On the website, there's,
We got some great pictures.
A link to be able to sponsor your site, a link to be able to sponsor.
Right.
Somewhere on the website we could send somebody to.
Say, hey, here's what we do, and here's why
we do it.
we do it.
Mhm.
That's probably in the Facebook post already.
How many trees,
What's that?
how many trees have, I was part of one
How many tree,
a
orange
year
trees?
ago. Yeah, how many orange trees
Oh,
plan on painting?
550. I mean, the total through the city is about 550 orange trees.
Okay. So at least 1,000.
No, we have 1,400 palm trees, but about 550, 600 orange trees.
We're not painting the palm trees.
No, no.
Ladders.
So
All right.
how many is expected to be painted this March?
As many as we can get. And Public Works truly appreciates this event.
We better get volunteers versus sponsors. A lot of
Yeah.
trees.
Yeah.
Did a pretty good job 2 years ago, as I recall.
Yes.
Even
So
last year was.
You
was a
chose
big
that
deal.
date based on the end of spring break, beginning of spring break, or where'd that date come from?
End of spring break.
It's the end of spring break, so people are getting back from vacation.
Between other events and things. I
you
think.
guys voted on that last year, just after the last one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for now?
I do have one other question, just so that if I need to adjust, the post, the time frame that you guys want this to be. I think last year I had put 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., but I don't know if that's accurate for what you guys need this year, so I can adjust that.
I think that's perfect.
That's good.
Are there any other questions? So we will be waiting for the sponsorship form and
Can we just get a link? We'll reach out.
perhaps just a link. And we can start reaching out in the meantime, spreading the word.
We can probably set up a quick link that I can send to you guys that you can share with people. And then they can just submit their interest right online, and then I can just take them to you guys or pass them along to you.
Okay.
Maybe we can get, Ethan Gardner.
Right?
Well, that's something Kiwanis would probably do.
Commissioners report on current events. Commissioner Colbreth.
Nothing to report this month.
Commissioner Schwartz.
First week of basketball went, great last week, good job. I got, all my kids signed up for the 5K in February, so busy month.
Commissioner Feith.
I appreciated the Google map for the holiday lights. It was nice having it in Google. Maybe we did that in the past and I just never used it, but it was nice to just click it and have all the houses.
Glad you made use of it then.
Yeah, thank you.
I've nothing to report.
Commissioner Fix.
My only report would be, that as you are all residents of the city charter is now drafted and will go to the voters for approval in March.
Wow.
So look for that.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your work on that.
Thank you, Sonny. Right on.
The ink is still wet.
Very cool. So I would first say that my family also did the house lights tour. There were some that we were trying to bounce back and forth from, I think, the Google map and the Instagram. I think there were some on both. The ones that were nominated were on Instagram,
Yes,
correct?
that's correct, yeah.
But the Google map had,
Had everybody, had
yeah.
all homes, yeah.
So I had a 15-year-old running that. That was
You
pretty
were in
tricky,
good
but
hands.
she did, right.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
There's some amazing.
Isn't there?
I could not believe, so on the south side of the neighborhood, there was a street south of, I should remember it, but I don't.
Fairway?
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
By
Like,
my house.
the three houses, is that?
Every cactus, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just the amount of lights within the four homes, you would think it was just incredible. And it looks professionally done. And when we went out after the first service at the Church of Litchfield Park, So I think that's what a lot of people did. You couldn't, you couldn't park on the streets anymore. There were so many people watching, like, the light presentation. And then, of course, over by Aleppo, there's the team of houses there where they designed their lights to the radio station.
Mm.
So you gotta park there for a little while, but there's, you know, depending on what time you get there, it's always full. So what a great event, and what a wonderful way to bring the community together and to galvanize and to really show the example of how the use of the Google Map, social media, and just one central event really had people in the neighborhood moving and checking out the homes. And it reminded me of Yard of the Quarter. And that's what I picture happening in the future with Yard of the Quarter. Lines of cars lined up outside of the Yard of the Corner winter because we somehow tapped into whatever it is that Christmas house lights seem to bring also.
May I add one thing to that?
Of course.
So you probably are all familiar with the home tour that the Historic Society does. It's in April this year. They're focusing on the greens, Litchfield Greens. So if you know anyone, they need 2 more houses.
Oh.
So I don't know where everybody lives, but if you know someone that might be interested, you can reach out to me or to Meredith Stuckey, their person.
Excellent, thank you for that. And that's all I wanted to report. And my hope is everybody had a great winter break, great holidays. We don't have any topics for referral over to the city council,
Nope, not yet.
other than the discussion and the suggestions that we had for Camelback Park. But I don't think
Yeah.
we need to make them official as referral.
Those are back to staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That only leaves one thing, guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Are there any questions? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.
Okay.